Good afternoon, folks. Alright, I found this gem at a local Goodwill, their computer store, for a whopping $5. Today we have an original 1993, 2.5/3 Macintosh PowerBook 165. And obviously it does not work if they're selling it for $5. It has no power supply, and the battery is completely toast. Let's see. Alrighty. So first, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to walk you through a quick disassembly of the main board components inside. If you want to go further than that and take the rest of it apart, that's on you. This battery is done. It's very squishy and puffed up in the center. So, but if one can find a power supply, these are capable of running solely off their power supply. For the disassembly, it's very, very simple. These are actually considerably easier than old computers or new computers. There's not really any type of latching points around the perimeter. It's all screws. However, it is all Torx screws. To disassemble this, you will need 3 tools: a Torx driver. Now this one's double-ended, so that's why I say 3. Technically you'll need 4 if you've got the interchangeable tips. You'll need a, no, you can't read that, but T10 and a T9. Those are the 2 sizes that this is going to require. You will also need a 4.5mm, technically this one's 5 because I don't have a 4.5, but it works, nut driver for 2 of the standoffs that are used as bolts, and a smaller flat blade screwdriver for 1 spring clip. Alright, so get started. Just start by removing the 4 Torx screws on the base. Alright. Yep. Make sure you've got some kind of a container to set your screws in. So, like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we've got those 4 there. Now, make sure that we're focusing here. Yes, okay, we are focused. There is 1 screw on the back, right here, and that is where we transition to the T9s, and everything beyond here will be a T9. So switch over to your T9 Torx tip, and they're all regular, none of them are security. And this one right below the telephone modem port, not a LAN port. LAN I don't believe existed for almost another, I would say probably 4 or 5 years after this one was built. So, alright. Oops, put that upside down. Alright. And then you should just be able to get the back to pop up a bit. There is a ribbon cable, and a very stiff ribbon cable at that, in between the monitor and keyboard assembly and the lower half, this right here. Hopefully y'all can see that. You can use a screwdriver if you have skinny enough hands. You can get them in there, and there we go. As soon as it pops loose, everything drops down. Not too concerned about harming this one, because all the plastic is just short of disintegrating. I actually had to repair a couple of the mount points because they were so brittle. Just taking the screws out caused them to crack. Okay, so now we have the inner workings of a 1992-3 PowerBook of 165. This thing sold for around $2,000 back in 1992. So yeah, you'd be up in the 3,500 range today. That's insane. So you can imagine the average household didn't have one of these. Alright, we're going to start by getting our video card out of here. So we've got 4 T9 Torx tips, or Torx screws, and all the internal screws are silver. The externals are black oxide, the internals are silver, real easy to keep them straight. And that one off of the back by the modem port is real easy to figure out because it's the only one with a different type of head. It's got like a little conical shaped head that fits into a taper. Okay, so we've got those 4 out. It is attached on this side with a direct multi-pin port. So just try and get a finger or a thumb down and hold the bottom half or the bottom board down. Just wiggle it up, and it's going to take a bit of force. You're going to feel like you're going to break something. You won't. And here we have the Apple proprietary video card with their magical special port of the day. And I don't know exactly what these are. If these are just anti-vibration bumpers, they're some kind of a squishy rubber. And amazingly, they're still squishy after, what, it's 2019, so 10, 20, close to 28 years. Yeah, they're still squishy. So I'm not sure if this is some type of a heat conductive material or not. There really isn't anything as far as heat control on this. There are no fans and really no ventilation to this thing. It's got one kind of vent port slash speaker up by the center of the monitor. And that's it. Alright, and then we have 1, 2, 3 of these little chrome standoffs. Next step is to remove the modem, or modem board. That is just 2 T9 screws. Sorry if my hands are getting in the way here. Trying out a new tripod and a new camera position. And that one is connected with another push pin port on this side. It doesn't require nearly as much force to get off. Just a little tug and she pops right off. And as far as I can tell, this board is actually in really good shape. Or this computer. I don't see any burn or short spots on it. And no, the few little capacitors that do exist on the board don't appear to be swollen at all, so I see no reason why, given the power, it wouldn't work. Alright, here we have the main motherboard. There are still 2 fasteners holding the motherboard down, and 3 connections. So you've got these 2 screw-in standoffs. These are where your 4.5mm comes into play. If you only have a 5, it will work. And more than likely, if you have to fight to get these out, don't worry about stripping the standoff itself, because at this age, this plastic is so brittle, you're actually going to probably break the mount before you break the standoff. Alright, so I've got two little standoffs. Alright. And the 3 connections. So this one is a push ribbon. You have to lift this little socket right here. You'll feel it just pops up, and then the ribbon will pull out. And then the hard drive connection. This one is a little stiff. You're going to have to kind of hold it down, hold the board down with your fingers, and just wiggle it back and forth. Wiggle it on up. Okay. Don't try to bend this back. This is, as far as I know, this is multi-bedded or multi-potted copper ribbon wire, and the stuff is extremely brittle. It does not like to be bent. So just flex it out of the way if you need to get it out of here. And then last connection, and this may or may not be necessary for your application, because it's a little photo eye that's basically the hey, there is or there isn't a battery indicator. It's got a little ribbon connection here, and this eye more often than not is loose and just kind of falls away. This one is actually fairly well attached. So this is another push socket. You just pull up the collar, and then you may need some form of a tool to lift this out of here. My fingers are too bloody big to get in here. Just get under it and then lift it away, and it pops right out. No resistance really. And the reason you have to do this before you can do the drives is this little guy right here. This is some form of, I think it's a heatsink actually. It feels like aluminum, and it is clamped onto this, I believe this is a voltage reducer. So that's going to generate a bit of heat, and I believe that is about the only existent heatsink in this thing. So beyond that, this board just lifts right out. And there you have a state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line Apple motherboard from 1992. I think there was only one model bigger than this at the time for the PowerBook, and that was the 180 series, which I believe the only difference between the 180 and this one was the size of the hard drive. I don't believe it had a bigger processor in it. So, and possibly had a larger battery. Alright. Yeah, this one was manufactured in 1993. Manufactured according to their case stamping right here. It's manufactured on May 13th of 93 in Cupertino, California. I don't even think they're made there anymore. Alright, so to get out the floppy disk assembly and the hard drive, you have 5 screws and 1 push clip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Torx screws and 1 push clip. And this is where I did run into a bit of a problem, because these things are very old and very brittle, and they don't like to come out without breaking. There's little brass pieces that are embedded in the plastic, and the plastic is just has not aged well, shall we say. And there's no specific order to these. Now obviously these are coming out very easily because I did take them out before. If your unit has never been apart, I can guarantee that these will be a bit of a fight to get out. Make sure your driver is in the head all the way, nice and firmly, and apply good consistent pressure. Don't worry about stripping the screw head, because as I said, this plastic is so brittle you're going to break the mount out before you ever break the screw. These, I believe, are stainless steel Torx heads. That's what they appear to be. They're not any type of coating that I can see. Alright, so those 5 screws out. There is one little push clip right here. You just stick your screwdriver in, and let's see if I can. So just stick it in, and it helps if you can kind of pull back on the drive right here, because the slot that they gave you is not actually as big or in the right position to push that clip back all the way. Alright, and then that just lifts out. If you're taking this apart to replace the hard drive, if it's failed, this connector here, it separates this way, it just pulls apart, but this connector is very, very tight. I would recommend using like a shish kebab skewer or like a chopstick to get in here and push on this. I don't recommend using a metal object. So if you've got some kind of a plastic pusher or something you can get in there, that would be fine. And you're going to have to just work it side to side until you can pull it all the way off. These pins are decently long. But as you can see, this was, I believe, Apple 160 means that it was 160 kilobytes or 16 megabytes. So yeah, really not a lot of storage back then. I mean, heck, I just dug an old SD card or mini SD card, the medium-sized one, out of an old cell phone, and that was a 1 gigabyte card, and it was about the size of the end of this connector right here. So yeah, we've come a ways. There's that, and then this drive just lifts out. You've got just a plastic anti-contact shield or some form of a shield right here. It's just sitting in there. Yeah, there's your disassembly, your floppy disk drive, and I don't think these are 3.5 inch. Oh yeah, they should be 3.5 inch. These are the weird ones that you push in and down. It doesn't have like a release. There's no latch. It's held in by the front lip of the actual computer case. Kind of a strange setup. And then Microsoft went, no, we should have an actual latch and put an actual eject button, because these eject just fine. You just push in the disk and it pops up and out. But okay, so yeah, that's in. There is the disassembly, and assembly is simply the reverse. And it is important, you know, put these guys in first, then your board, because of that one little heatsink piece. You can't put the board, or can't put these guys in with this in the way. And I would not even begin to attempt to remove that. It is clamped on there pretty solidly. And yeah, I'm not even going to mess with trying to pull that off of there. The edges of this board are actually starting to expand mildly, so that tells me that this board is, you know, very brittle. Yeah, this is, well, the board was manufactured in '92, as a matter of fact, so obviously they were, you know, in that middle of the build year setup. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so there really isn't any difference. I don't know if you can read that, but it's got two options here. This board was usable in the PowerBook 160 or 180, as well as the PowerBook 165C and 180C, which C stood for color. That was a color monitor. So I believe that all of the difference there was they just gave it a different video card and obviously a different display, since this is only a monochromatic display. So there you go. Disassembly of a MacBook, or PowerBook, not MacBook.